ideal person needs to be educated by the Islamic education system, and the term used to refer to the ideal human being in the Islamic civilization is al-insan al-kamil, and al-insan al-kamil, the ideal, the perfect human being, is characterized by excellence in rational academic knowledge as well as good character. So this is the goal of Islamic education. And the second question is, how can we combine academic as well as character education? So this is the second question, because in every educational system, two things are taught: academic knowledge and good character. And good character changes from culture to culture. Like, what's a good character? You know, what are the values, principles of good character? It changes. And today we have two competing approaches to good character. One is the liberal approach, and it is the most dominant approach in the world. It is based on autonomy of the individual, an autonomous individual which is isolated, disconnected from social world, from God, and he or she decides about her own values. So this autonomous individual is at the foundation of this liberal ethics, and it leads to ethical relativism. And on the other hand, the Islamic approach to character education, it is based on the opposite, connectedness of the individual. An individual is connected to family, to society, to humanity, and to metaphysical world, and to the divine world. Well connected. And this is achieved through ta'lim and tazkiyah. So there are two methods, in the Islamic education. They are called ta'lim and tazkiyah, and these two methods, they are the methods of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used in education. And in the Quran, this is described as follows: يُعَلِّمُهُمْ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. So he uses ta'lim, which is rational academic education, to teach them the book, al-kitab, and also al-hikmah. Al-hikmah has two meanings: the sunnah, which includes wisdom as well. This is the rational education, and also the وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ tazkiyah, which moral purification, spiritual purification. So these two methods are combined by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in his education. So today, if we want education to be Islamic, we need to employ ta'lim and tazkiyah, academic education and character education. So this is another criterion that determines whether an education system is Islamic or not. And the third question: what's the world view underpinning natural science education, social science education, and also humanities education? So the answer to this question is that the Islamic worldview is a multiplex worldview which accepts that there are multiple layers of existence, multiple layers of knowledge, and multiple layers of methods, meanings, and truth. So if this multiplex worldview is the underpinning philosophy for natural science education, social science education, and also humanities education, then that education is Islamic. Otherwise, if the underpinning philosophy or the worldview is a materialistic, positivistic worldview, then we cannot say this education is Islamic. Of course, there are like great details about this, but this is very important criterion, in particular regarding human being. So what's a human being? I'm not asking who is a human being. I'm asking what's a human being. So this is about the existence of a human being. So if you are using in your education the concept of a human being which is materialistic, then you cannot say this education is Islamic. You know, so in your biology class or in your psychology class or in your sociology class, I mean, if you employ a concept of human being which is completely materialistic, excluding the heart, the soul, then you cannot call this type of education an Islamic education. Same thing implies for the physical world. I mean, if your natural science education, if the textbooks exclude the metaphysical world, the divine world, then you cannot say this is an Islamic education. So this is about the worldview underpinning the science education. And the fourth question, how should the teacher and student relationship be structured? Because this is another dimension of education. It's about student and teacher relationship. Islamic education has particular principles, norms, guiding the relationship between the teacher and the student. So if the teacher and student relationship is shaped by Islamic values, principles, then you can say this education is an Islamic education. In contrast, if it's shaped by capitalist, commercialized perspective, and from that perspective, the teacher provides a product and the student is like a customer buying that product. This is not Islamic education, okay? And so the model for the teacher-student relationship is provided by the relationship between Rasulullah ﷺ and the Sahabis. And Rasulullah ﷺ set the values for the relationship between teacher and student, and there are many books on this issue about ta'lim and muta'allim, so the relationship between the teacher and the student, and their the relations, the adab, the akhlaq, between the two. If these are practiced, then this education is Islamic education. Otherwise, if the relationship is is defined by another moral value system, then we cannot call this education an Islamic education. So the fifth question that I would like to ask, what's the heritage offered to the students? Because every education system connects the young generation to a cultural heritage, to an intellectual heritage, to a civilizational heritage. So in the textbooks, whether it is natural science, social science, or humanities, if the students are connected to Islamic heritage, then this is an Islamic education. Otherwise, if they are connected to Greek heritage, to medieval European heritage and modern European heritage, and there is nothing connecting the students to Islamic intellectual heritage or civilizational heritage, then you cannot call this educational system an Islamic education. So it's very important that the education system connects students to Islamic heritage and makes them proud of that heritage. Today there is a trend in American universities, to teach students, Western civilization and make them feel that they are part of the Western civilization. So there is a 2 volumes textbook. It's titled Western Heritage, and this is taught as a university course, part of core curriculum to all students, so that they feel, okay, this is our heritage, and they feel we should be proud of that heritage, and that heritage provides a common discourse, common ground, common identity for the students. Same way, the humanities course, same way, world history or world civilizations course, all these courses are aimed at providing a civilizational identity based on a common cultural, civilizational, intellectual heritage. Same thing should be done by Islamic education. Islamic education should provide knowledge about Islamic heritage and give this civilization identity to the students. And it's very important when our heritage is taught to emphasize continuity, because there are 2 approaches to Islamic history. One is based on the discontinuity. People who adopt this continuous approach to Islamic history, civilization and heritage, they say there was a golden age in the beginning, then came dark ages until 19th century. Then there are efforts for Nahda, awakening, revival, either by Salafi movement or by secularist modernist movement. But in between there is 12 or 13 centuries, lost centuries, dark centuries, and there is nothing to be proud of in these centuries. Muslims did everything wrong in these during these centuries. So this is discontinuous approach to Islamic civilization, history and heritage. The opposite is the continuous approach, which I believe that from the beginning on there is a continuity in Islamic civilization. The silsila has never been cut off. In every century, Muslims did great things. Of course, there were periods of crisis, periods of problems, but Islamic history was never disrupted. It's a continuous civilizational history, intellectual history. But those people who subscribe to the Salafi or the modernist ideologies, they think there is a more than 1,000 year disruption, which does not make sense, sociologically or historically. So it's very important to emphasize the continuity so that our young generation, feels proud of being part of that civilization and being inheritors of that civilization. So the sixth question, education system must provide a future vision. So what's the future vision education system provides to the students? Okay, so it's very important. So what's the future vision? Every country, every nation, every civilization has a future vision, and they teach this future vision to their students through their educational system. So if the education system offers the students the future vision of Islam, Islamic civilization, Islamic Ummah, then you can call this education an Islamic education. Otherwise, it is not an Islamic education. But today, unfortunately, Muslims forgot what's their future vision. This is what's their dream for the future, what's their goal for the future. So it's very important that Islamic education institutions offer, this future vision, which I call reviving the open civilization, or reviving Islamic civilization once again as an open civilization, because Islam as a religion and civilization is not only for Muslims, for the whole world. And Islam's promise to humanity, justice and happiness for everybody. So this was the future vision of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims in the succeeding generations. So this should be the future vision Islamic education teaches. The second, the seventh question is that how do we relate to modern Western science? So this is also a very important criterion to judge whether our education system is Islamic or not. If we completely copy modern Western science, our education system is not Islamic. So what should we do? Reject it? No. My answer is accept empirically proven facts, and when it comes to interpretation of those facts and data, come up with your own interpretation from Islamic perspective. Because Western science and any scientific system is constituted by two things: empirically proven facts plus their interpretations. So we have to dissect the two parts, accept empirically proven facts, and critically analyze the interpretations offered for it. Because even among the Western scientists, there are divergent interpretations of the same data, same empirical facts. So there is nothing wrong, if Muslims come up with their own interpretations. So this is between two extremes. One extreme is completely copying, wholesale importing the Western science, including everything, and the other extreme is rejecting everything. So the moderate critical approach is in between: accept empirically proven facts, critically analyze the interpretations. So this is the seventh criterion I suggest to judge whether education is Islamic or not. And the eighth criterion is about the question of financing education. How is education financed? Okay, so there are many different models of financing education, but today education as a domain becoming more and more commercialized. So if education is turned into a commodity, this is not Islamic. If education is turned into a commercial activity, this is not Islamic. When we look at Islamic civilization, we see that education is usually financed by Waqf institution, the foundations, the trusts. Education has never been commercialized. Education has never been a commodity to buy and sell. It was always provided to everybody, equal opportunity, and it was completely free. So this is another criterion whether education is Islamic or not. So lastly, the last question is about what's the role of Isnad? Because Isnad system, which is a system of linking education to previous generations of scholars, it's a chain of authorities linking present day students and scholars to the previous authorities until it reaches to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Isnad system is a distinctive quality of Islamic education, and in the diplomas given to the graduates, the chain of authorities, the Isnad is mentioned. So today, what should be the role of Isnad in our education system? So this is another criterion to judge whether an education system is Islamic or not. So if there is Isnad, this is an Islamic education system. If there is no Isnad, then we cannot say, this is authentically Islamic education system. So these are the 9 criterion that I have developed to judge whether an education is Islamic or not. So people who are involved in education, they can evaluate their system, whether it is Islamic or not, and they can identify their strong points and weak points, the points that they need to work on to develop. So this may be used as an index. Islamic financial institutions, they developed index, and they have like Sharia board, and they have index to judge how much they are Islamic, how Islamic they are, and then their strong and weak points. The same thing should be done for educational institutions. We should come up with an index to judge what's the extent to which they are Islamic. So if I summarize, to sum up, in order for an education system to be Islamic, its goal should be raising insan kamil. First. Second, it should combine talim and tezkiye. Third, it should adopt multiplex worldview. Fourth, the relationship between teacher and student must be based on Islamic adab. Fifth, it should connect students to the heritage of Islamic civilization. Sixth, it should provide a future vision for Islamic civilization. And seventh, it should accept empirically proven facts from modern science, but critically analyze their interpretations. Eighth, education should not be seen as a commodity. It should not be commercialized. It should be financed by charitable foundations. And lastly, the 9th criterion is that there should be a place for Isnad. Thank you very much.
that, then before we, move to our second panelist, Professor Bilal, who's the chairman of the Senturk. Professor, please, the floor is yours if you have any comments or
Yeah.
First,
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi alamin ve salatu ve selamu ala Resulina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve sahbihi ecmain. I am honored to be in this panel, and also I welcome my dear friend, Professor Recep, President of Ibn Khaldun University. Without any further delay on my part, I would like to just make a couple of points which really Professor Recep has crystallized and has drawn the parameters of Islamic education. Now, I would like to focus on one issue, that is worldview. And the worldview which is multiplex. Tawhidi centered worldview, but which has multiple ramifications and implications. In the Western world today, some of the authors and scholars have been criticizing the Western educational system. When I was doing research on the subject, I came across a book written by Professor Harry Lewis, who served as a dean of the faculty, the Harvard College, and he wrote a book entitled Excellence Without a Soul. Excellence Without a Soul. Does liberal education have a future? That was the question, which was published in the year 2006 and 2007, and an excellent book for those who are interested in this and also to see. And I would like to just read, because it's very important what Professor Recep just has remarked. And here he says, today universities have forgotten their larger education role for college students. They succeed better than ever as creators and repositories of knowledge. But they have forgotten that the fundamental job of undergraduate education is, to help them grow up, to learn who they are, to search for a larger purpose for their lives, and to leave colleges as better human beings. So totally has the goal of scholarly excellence, he continues, overshadowed universities' education role, that they have forgotten that these two are not in conflict. We don't hear about personal strength, integrity, kindness, cooperation, compassion, and how to leave the world a better place than you found it. The greater the university is, the more intent it is on competitive success in academic achievement, like in marketplace of faculty, students, and research money. And the less likely it is to talk seriously to students about their development into people of good character, who will know that they owe something to society for the privileged education that they have received. I guess this is a remarkable, observation made by this Harry Lewis, who was the dean of Harvard College, and for about 20 years. Now, coming back, our topic. What characterizes Islamic education? I will approach from a rather philosophical point of view. When we speak about Islamic education, first, there is an understanding of ontology, and epistemology and axiology. So, which means one of the major characteristics of Islamic education is to know what knowledge is and how this knowledge can be acquired, and also the ontologically speaking, of course, at the center of our worldview is God, and how to read ourselves, how to understand ourselves, how to relate ourselves with the rest. This is also important. Of course, it is basically the realms of human being and realms of external world, and also God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are at least three realms that we need to understand well, before drawing up, for example, our curriculum for educational purposes. This is extremely important. Why I am saying this? Of course, if you refer to the Quran, as we all know, there are written books, of course, revelations, and the final of which is the Quran al-Kareem, the guidance for humanity, is a written scripture. And also there is an open great book, which has two. One is inside the human being, and the other side, the cosmos. So as an educational, like a teacher, first and foremost, has to understand that one of the tasks of education to decipher the science of God, and as we say, ayat, visible and invisible, readable, observable, and discoverable, discernible within ourselves and outside. So, this is an extremely important, and then the role of human being, and like conception of human being, and as our professor just noted, not who is man, but what is human, and it's an important, which means it's a complicated being, yet created by God, body, soul, spirit, heart and mind, and they all. So as we were discussing, for example, the notion of qalb, which is in fact the center of intellection, center of almost all activities in Islamic education, which is missing today in normal education system. So the rest are the faculties of the heart, but the heart is the central faculty, which has will, which has thinking, reasoning, and like cogitative and emotional and faculties. So this is one aspect. The second is the sources of knowledge. When we look at today in our education system, and only the experimental side, or the side that we observe, like based on senses or based on reason. But in Islam, we have a number of sources of knowledge, but which have hierarchical order, as we say, maratibul ulum, degrees of knowledge. And as again, our distinguished guest very articulated that. So in accordance with the understanding of the degrees of existence, maratibul wujud, we have also degrees of understanding and knowing, and which means the knowledge. And also, like revelation is a source of knowledge, and which has a degree of binding for Muslims, and transmission of knowledge from the past authorities, which means the connection, and also like maybe it may appear to be some people like a subjective, like unveiling or mushahada, mukashafa. There are technical terms, okay, which we can consider as source of knowledge, but which has different degrees in terms of their power. And the third, today's education system, knowing means is receiving, acquiring. But in Islam, knowing is becoming. Knowledge has a burden on us, which means action. So in Islamic education, it is not for the sake of learning, for the sake of acquiring, accumulating, for the sake of becoming not anybody but somebody, which has been characterized also as al-insan al-kamil, perfect human being. So this is also important. How can we achieve this? So again, moral, aesthetical, objective, subjective aspects of all human life, including the governing principles of human society from the point of Islam, which we call, of course, Islamic law, fiqh. And so fiqh has to be an integral part of Islamic education today. Why? Because freedom, responsibility, accountability. These are the three terms. Those who are teaching are responsible, and those who are teaching free to choose. But how to choose? What to choose? Depending on their worldview, depending on their, Islamic confidence or identity or what we call worldview, they will be able to really understand better how responsible they are and how accountable they are. That's another dimension. Then, so what are the implications of worldview of Islam for education? One, preparation of curriculum. You cannot develop a curriculum out of vacuum. There has to be a solid ground. So understanding of ontology, understanding of human being, understanding of God, and as a whole. So it's not a partial and, not experimental, but also spiritual, in other words. And teaching philosophy has to be prepared also. What should be the teaching philosophy of a teacher? And what should be the orientation of the students? And the teaching and learning environments and techniques, and materials to be used, subjects to be taught, research activities, school management, family involvement, and also interaction of the stakeholders in education. All of them really should be considered seriously when we develop an Islamic education. Now, here are the key concepts I would like to conclude by giving this, how difficult this job is, by the way. And I'm very happy that Ustaz has come up, at least to give an effort, to make an effort to shape the existing education to make it Islamic, in a sense. But I guess these notions should be well understood. First, trustee of God on the earth, meaning human being. Second, trust itself, amana. Third, fitra of human being. Fourth, mas'uliyah, responsibility of human being. Fifth, accountability of human being. And now if we move ahead, education engagement, which I call deep, and which includes ilm and tazkiyah as a whole together, and even the hikmat, because you see, hikmat meaning recognizing the proper place of things in the order of creation. That's important. And also tarbiyah and ilm, ma'rifah, and hikmah and haqq as a whole. These are some of the issues that I would like to share with you. But last but not the least, ethically speaking, since we come from the city of Konya, ethic is very, very important. Now, for all the parents, when they would like to give knowledge to their children, Mevlana Rumi says, okay, this is Persian, but let me translate it into English. From the lawful morsel are born knowledge and wisdom. If you want to attain knowledge and wisdom, if you transmit them, it has to come from halal means. That's very important. Lawful means. From the lawful morsel come love and tenderness. So it's not only the worldview, like ideology, intellectual background of the education, but also techniques, means, environment, and preparation should be based on also permissible, in other words, clean, or what we call tayyibat, and pure sources we have to build our education system. And thank you very much again, and I hope this will be enough. If there are questions, inshallah, our guest and myself, we can entertain.